Hi, Geekscapists. It's me, Jonathan London, your host. And if this is your first Geekscape, well, you downloaded one of the internet's first pop culture podcasts. We've been around for 18 plus years or so, talking movies, video games, comic books, TV, all the pop culture that'll fit under your pop culture hood. And I've been thinking about it a lot because we have LA Comic Con coming up, and the Geekscape team that's in LA, we're going to be submitting panels. We'll hopefully get a couple of them approved. The LA Comic Con is kind of like our hometown convention. And I mention this because maybe you're listening to this on the audio feed. Well, if you are, you're in the right spot, because I take a lot of those panels that we do and I record them. Maybe they're main stage panels. Like, remember 2 years ago when I proposed to Heidi on the main stage of LA Comic Con, and Giancarlo Esposito was like my wingman, and he held the ring and he gave it to me. That was insane. And then last year, I think the main stage panels, and you guys heard it right here on the feed, we had LeVar Burton, Amy Jo Johnson from Power Rangers, Steve from Blues Clues. Like, those were really, really cool discussions. And then, of course, we had our panels with the Geekscapists. Like, we had our live Geekscape there at LA Comic Con. That stuff is audio only. Right, I don't have a camera crew to go down there and shoot that stuff, and it's obviously not streamed over YouTube and Facebook and Twitch like the show is through StreamYard. So if you're listening to this as an MP3 on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you're in the right place to catch all the stuff that we're going to be doing at LA Comic Con. And what's great is, unlike the stuff we were doing at San Diego Comic Con, we can now talk about what we're working on because the writer's strike seems to be in its last couple of days. So I'm guessing by early December, the writers that we'll have on these panels will be able to talk about their projects. We're already talking about putting these different panels together, and hopefully the actors and SAG are right behind them in getting their deals done, and we can just get back to work. How are you holding up? How's your contenting? Are you feeling like maybe your shows have slowed down, or maybe you've given up on shows because they've been canceled because of the strike? They just canceled a bunch of shows over at Stars, shows like Heels. You guys are wrestling fans. Maybe you've been watching Heels. Well, that got canceled. I'm a basketball fan, and I absolutely love Winning Time over on HBO Max. I'm still calling it HBO Max. And that one got canceled. I loved it. And it's somebody said it was like the worst ending to a series of all time because they just ended it with cards, and that stinks. I haven't even finished the second season because part of me is like, well, what's the point? Like, I kind of know what happened already as a basketball fan, and then you're just going to cancel it like that and end it with cards. So the strike's been hard for both fans and for professionals, and all that to say, it's a long way to say, hey, you're in the right place if you're subscribed to the Geekscape podcast on Spotify. Video-wise, you're going to want to maybe subscribe to the YouTube or the Twitch, or maybe us over on Facebook, because we also have our holiday stream coming up. And that happens in mid-December, where we line up almost the entire network. We have close to 30 shows now, and most shows are represented. And we do this for Big Brothers Big Sisters. And we either do like each show either does like an hour podcast, or we have musical guests who've been guests on the show throughout the last year. You guys had the Paranoias last week. We were talking to the Paranoias about maybe performing on the show. I love those guys. I had a lot of feedback on that episode, and it was awesome for people to be like, hey, I love the Paranoias. I've never heard their music, but I like these dudes. They're cool. I'm going to check out their music. That's the whole goal. And I think I have another musical guest lined up for next week, but I'll take a week to confirm it. All that to say, however you get your Geekscape's the right way to get your Geekscape. But maybe check out like the video or check out the MP3, and for sure share it with your friends. Leave all those reviews that help our visibility, this and that. Speaking of podcasts and hosts, was having dinner with Jason Inman on Sunday. He's a longtime Geekscape friend. He's been on the show many times. He's been a part of our live streams, he and Ashley. He's been a part of our panels at various Comic Cons, he and his wife Ashley. And I met dinner with him on Sunday night, and Jason goes, hey, I was talking to one of your former guests, DJ Wooldridge, and I was like, whoa, hold it right there. I've never had DJ Wooldridge on the show. I've seen him a million times, but he's such a good podcaster. He's such a good broadcaster, and he's so handsome. I've never had him on Geekscape. I'm too intimidated by him. Can't have him on the same podcast as me. The Geekscapes will immediately have this grand migration from my feed to his feed because he's just superior. And Jason's like, really? You've never had him on the show? And I was like, no, I've never had him on the show. I know that we run in the same circles, but I've never had him on the show. Well, that gets corrected today, Geekscape. So I've got DJ waiting in the wings to be the guest on this podcast that you're listening to right now or watching over there on YouTube's Twitch or Facebook. So you're in the right spot. Let's get this thing started. We'll come back and talk about all these topics, pop culture, the new Mortal Kombat game, and more on this Geekscape. So let's go. All right, Geekscapists, let's get this thing going. DJ Wooldridge, you might know him. Spent a year in an Iranian prison. He is a renowned, I'm just reading these off the notes, bear fighter. Didn't know that was still going on. Seems like some 1800 shit, but I guess in some parts of the world that happens. He also holds a few world records, mainly in the 100-meter swim. I hope I'm getting this right. You can't trust the internet when you're researching this stuff. He was also a male model for Hanes about 10 years ago. I don't know if I'm just reading this off the internet. This is just research I've done, but I believe all of it. I believe every single part of this because I'm great at research and I know how to pick them here on Geekscape. So here he is right now. Brace yourselves. DJ Wooldridge, did I get all that right?
Yeah. What a lovely introduction. Thank you. All the lovely compliments. I really appreciate it. I truly appreciate you having me on.
And you're wearing Hanes now still?
Yes. Can confirm.
Yeah. You haven't worked your way through all the comps.
Yeah. They sent you so much, and which just I don't want to add to the waste. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
All the trash we got thrown in the ocean. You know what I mean? So I just keep you. I'm wearing the same ones I wore from 10 years ago.
The bear fighting Hanes.
Yeah, for conservation purposes.
How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
And we've known of each other. Maybe I've known of you. Maybe you're like Jonathan who? I don't know.
Oh yeah, we've heard like you said, we've been running in similar circles before we went on air. You were just rattling off a bunch of pals that people know. I'm assuming if they've listened to your show, they know how like we all kind of like run around each other. Everybody in this town.
Well, Jason Inman for sure, because he, as I told you, I met him through Matt Robb and those folks. So we were doing press or something over in WonderCon. This is years ago, years ago, and Jason and I became friends, and we were kind of like, you got to do the social media like mutual follows, and then DC had that contest to be like a host for DC All Access.
Yeah.
And I make it to the interview and I walk in. This is a story at Geekscape. I'm sorry if you've already heard this one. I don't think we've told it in a few years, but I go in and I do the interview and I walk out and I was like feeling pretty good about this. And then I see Jason waiting to go in for his interview. And I was like, and that's the end of that. And Jason has the opposite. Jason's like, I'm feeling pretty good sitting on the couch waiting for the interview. And I see Jonathan come out and I was like, well, fuck. And ultimately, I was right. Jason was the guy, especially for DC, right? Like Jason is a huge DC fan, and as are you. Like, whereas I hang my hat over at the Marvel end, you're a fan of the Distinguished Competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like everybody that reads this stuff reads all the stuff, basically. But I think I tend to, at least as far as the comics go, traditionally gravitate more towards the DC characters. I want to say I met Jason when he was doing the DC All Access thing. I want to say he came over. It was back when I was at SourceFed. I want to say he did something with us over there, and that's how I first met him. But I don't remember. Now I don't know. I don't remember what the specific circumstances were. because I assume it's similar with you. Like you're at a spot. You've been doing this for a while, but like you're at a spot. At least when I was coming up, you're at a spot and it implodes, and then you go to another spot, and then it. You know what I mean? So you don't remember where you picked up.
I never worked for spots with revision 3 back in the Geek Drum days was that year at revision 3. Like I liked Jay Adelson, I liked Kevin, I liked all those guys, but they were very, and I love the iFanboy kids. Like I love the iFanboy guys. But it was very much, it came out of dig.com, and it was very tech, and I didn't get the tech culture. As a filmmaker, I was like, in like a comics person and a pop culture person, I was like, well, this is a little too keyboard, like tech stuff for me. And then another part of me was like, I want to own it, like with Geekscape, we're the cockroach of the internet, which is great. Like we're not the biggest network. I love the shows that we have, and Geekscape is, if you listen to other Geekscape shows, I just say thank you, because even on my own network, we're putting together ad rates, and so like if you get Geekscape has heard the ads and this and that, we've been selling ads, and it's been fantastic. And thank you so much. Our numbers and the money we get from ads has been growing like crazy recently. All of it is shared with the podcasters, and it's one of those conversations where, like during the strike, especially when things are a little tight, and like the movie you think is going forward, or the script you think you're going to move forward on, or option, or this and that, when those things get frozen, you start being like, okay, well, how much did Geekscape make on advertising? But the deal I made with the Geekscape is we pay for the hosting, and then once the hosting's paid for, like podcasters start divvying it up based on how their numbers are doing, and the numbers are doing so well. Like this show right here, the flagship Geekscape show, not top 5 on its own network at all.
Wow.
The boys in Bingetown are killing it. The horror movie night guys are the MVP. Like they love talking horror movies, and you guys love listening to that stuff. The superhero kids who are talking about the superhero stuff, you should know. Like I think that stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
And then of course the $2 late fee guys who snuck my younger brother Paul onto my own network without me knowing. Like it's kind of effed up. Like I wanted my younger brother, ex WWE wrestler Paul London. I'm like, hey man, you should do like a wrestling podcast on the network. And he's like, and like we connected him with Matt about, hey, can you make it easier for Paul just to come on the network and talk wrestling for the wrestling fans? Next thing I know, Zach from $2 late fee is doing a wrestling podcast in the $2 late fee feed, where every other week or so he and my brother talk wrestling, and now he's on the network. I didn't know. I mean, he like backdoored my brother onto my own network without telling me.
Yeah.
And that's popping off. I hate that. Come on, man. Why the lies?
Yeah.
I'm not in control of this, man.
You're like, I don't even know what shows we're doing.
I don't know. I honestly don't. Like, I'll look up on the feed and be like, we're doing a show about Christmas? What the? Wait, 24, like 7? Like, we're doing a show about Christmas, like all 12 months. Like, we're doing it, like, and I remember the Christmas show specifically telling Matt, like, wait, run this past me again. We're not just doing that in like November, December. And it's like, no, it's people love Christmas year round. I got to tell you, like November, December, that's easily the biggest show on the network. People go crazy.
You're like, it's wild. November, December. Nobody listens to that. The other month of the year,
dude, it comes out of nowhere. Like it hovers in like the top 10.
Yeah.
And then it's a juggernaut.
Yeah.
During Christmas. And like I built my own prison with this thing. So when I say that I would host everything now and then, I'd come on like Break or Machinima, or I'd come in and say hi, but I never was employed by those places because, man, I don't get it. I just didn't get those cultures, man. I didn't get those things. How was your experience? Can I get your origin story, DJ? Like where'd you move here from? Where'd you grow up, dude?
I grew up. We moved around a bunch when I was a kid, but mostly
ninjas.
Not ninjas, unfortunately.
Who was chasing your family?
No, just like work stuff and everything. So we just moved around a bunch, but we kind of landed in Tampa, Florida, and then like most people that came out here looking to do the writing, directing, that sort of thing, got work editing, and started editing for SourceFed. And then occasionally they would have me on. They had like a show called Table Talk where, they had the cast talking every week, and eventually occasionally they'd bring on different staff people, and they had me on specifically for comic stuff. Like, so around, I think the first time I went on was they were covering San Diego Comic-Con news, and I was a bit more knowledgeable about the comic stuff than some of the other people there, so they had me on. And then I hosted a show, I think it was called, it was Superhero Roundup. Sorry, there was a lot of iterations of it, where me and my friend Sam and Matt and a few other people would talk about that was back in the days where it was like, well, it started with Flash. I think at the time it was, you had Arrow Flash over at CW, and then I think Constantine on was like for a second at NBC around that time, and then I think Gotham premiered around the same time as Flash. And then, of course, in a couple of years, just all the CW shows. That was enough to fill a conversation, an hour plus long conversation, just those shows. And then when SourceFed went away, Sam and I pivoted to doing Only Stupid Answers, was the podcast I still do now.
Only Stupid Answers?
Only Stupid Answers, yeah. And so that was, and that the big thing there is we kind of wanted to broaden. We still had our own. For the Patreon, we still had our own, like, talking about all the superhero shows, but it was more of a broad, like, it was basically a whatever we feel like talking about show, which is like, it's good in that you're not tied into one specific thing, but it can also be tough where, you're like, oh God, what are we talking about this week? Like, what are we gonna you don't have that kind of structure. And still doing the podcast. Sam's moved on to other things, but I'm still doing my thing with Roxy now as the co-host, and still working on making the writing directing dream come true at the same time.
How do you find time? Like, I've talked to a lot of people, and the Paranoias were the guests last week, and I love them. But the subject came up of like hustle gigs, side gigs. Like, I have a gig that I worked this weekend for one of the studios. Now Geekscape is only crossing strike lines. It was a different gig, but it was for the marketing department, and it was literally like I've had that job since 2005.
Yeah.
It's like almost a suit. It's like a suit job.
Yeah,
and it bumps up against your creativity. I found myself, like, Saturday and Sunday, I found myself working 2 or 3 different hustles, like editing and doing, and then just vomit drafting like crazy on scripts.
Yeah,
a movie and then a TV piece, and just vomit drafting as much as I could to try and get like a cohesive outline. How do you carve it out? How do you find the time? Because it can really take your brain apart.
I'm in a pretty okay position right now where I'm able to kind of just focus on the day gig. Kind of is the podcast, and then I do I work on different scripts and stuff like that, my comics and stuff like that around that. God bless my wife. She's got a good, solid, steady gig that's able to keep us, because mine is not stable enough to rely on at this point.
And I think it was like somebody like Dr. Dre said it.
Yeah.
I may be misquoting it. Could have been somebody else, but Dr. Dre was like, "You can't both be the creative when it gets hard." And he's talking about the early days, right?
Like, I don't want to tell other people how to live their lives.
Sure. No, I clearly jumped into a relationship with an actress.
Yeah.
Like, my wife is an actress.
Yeah, but there is a lot of benefits to having somebody, in a lot of ways, not just that her work life is more stable, and we're able to rely on that better, but also it allows for us, this is what works for us, it allows us different perspectives on stuff, and it's one of those like I get to be, in our relationship, I get to be the one that's more knowledgeable about movies and TV shows.
Is that a valuable skill?
You know what I mean? So,
this is what I bring to the table. Hey guys,
and
I'm being facetious, but clearly that's something that I do. You know what I mean? Like, in my last marriage, there was definitely a feeling at times when it was like oh, the kid, you married the kid who like shows up at the dinner parties or shows up at like the family stuff, and he's hanging out with the kids because they have the same like sentiments in like fandoms that he does.
Yeah.
And does that make sense? Like when somebody else has like the structured grown up stuff, there need like the balance sometimes is hard in a social aspect. And you bumped into that. But I mean, you're a good dude. Like you clearly can speak about other things beyond just the 4-colored funnies, but we don't want to. We don't want to.
No.
We want to be we're the popular uncles always. Like it's like you get that. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger sister. Yeah.
And is she married? Does she have kids? Like, has she moved on to like adult life, unlike us?
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, but no, you know, I've got no nieces and nephews or stuff like that. But she, you know, again, she's kind of the more, also has a more stable, and that's just the nature of the beast. Like this, especially now, obviously, stuff like the strikes are attempting to remedy some of that instability, but. Studios, not just studios, but like general higher ups within the business world would like things to be as unstable for the rest of us as possible. It benefits them. So it's not, and I guess I do benefit from that understanding that some of the instability. Obviously, the path I chose is inherently unstable, but some of the instability isn't my fault. That's not on me. That's not a statement on me or my abilities.
Do you know the guy Ari Shankar who does that bootleg? Yeah. You know, so Ari,
he did some stuff. I've met him. He did some stuff over at SourceFed. Yeah,
I like Ari and Avi. Okay,
yeah.
I remember he was playing with the idea of a podcast or this and that, but we were having a conversation, and it was when I was really in the thick of a divorce.
Yeah,
and I remember talking to him about stability. And I remember this all the time, Mr. Shankar. Like, maybe I'll see you at LA Comic Con like I did last year. We can talk this over. But I was telling him about stability. And sometimes you're in relationships for stability. Or you do things thinking that stability is and he goes, stability is an illusion. Doesn't that sound like something he would say?
Yeah.
Because he's all like mindful and like, you know, thinking, he goes, stability is an illusion. And it's so true, dude. You can walk off the wrong curb and a bus wipes you out, or a bus wipes out a loved one. And we've all dealt with loss and things like that. And the sudden, you know, the suddenness of unpredictability of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I remind myself of that when like the last 5 months of this WGA strike, and you see things that you thought were like, oh man, this project's going to go forward, or we got all these pieces together, and oh my God, I've never been closer. And then something you're not in control of throws a wrench in it, or delays it, or just derails it.
Yeah.
I hear his voice, Mr. Shankar's voice. Stability is an illusion.
Well, it's funny.
He didn't even say it. He texted it to me. But yes, but I hear his voice anyway.
Hear his voice. Yeah. You can hear him saying it. Yeah, there was there's a project I was working on that I've been working many years to try and get off the ground, and I was gonna crowdfund a project, and it was at the end of 2019. I got hit with some personal issues, and so I was like, okay, we'll do it early 2020. And it was a film project, and so I was filming some footage. I was going to film some demo footage for the Kickstarter to show people, you know, I got my cast together and everything. And as we're filming, we're getting the updates of things shutting down. Like literally, everything was shutting down in LA the 2 days we were filming. And I remember it so distinctly. We wrapped, and there was a few things because it was raining one of the days, so there's some outdoor stuff we weren't able to get. And I was like, it's okay. In 3 months, we'll be able to get back out there and do the thing. 3 years later, I'm getting everybody back together. Like, guys, now's the time. We're doing it. I'm getting some extra stuff, and like everything's good to go. And then the actors go on strike, and I've got the actors on the project. And technically, we're in the clear, but just a lot of volatilities at the right time. Are people going to respond? All that stuff.
And Geekscape it's not. This is a cure-all. That whole thing about just get an agreement. And like SAG wants to see that you have money in an account to give you that. Like,
you nailed it. I did.
And that's the thing.
This is nothing against. They have 100.
Nothing against SAG.
Members,
like SAG doesn't want to give agreements to every kid that comes up off the street. You have to prove that you have money. You have to prove that you have financing. And I'm not saying you have to get like letters of intent from actors or this and that, but SAG needs to know you're not some kid off the road who's going to be wasting their time for one of these interim agreements just for the project not to happen. And I remember sitting down in Atwater Village with my producer and an actor, and he said, I want to do this film. And it was March 12th. And that night I watched the Rudy Gobert game in Oklahoma City, where the Jazz are playing in Oklahoma City, and they stop. They do not have the game, and they lock everybody into the arena. They lock all the players there, and that's the Rudy Gobert game. And that was like that for me was like, oh, this is really serious, because you hear about a little bit of the COVID breakout that was happening in like Orange County on like one of the bases. They had a little bit of something going on. You hear COVID coming over here, you hear a little bit of COVID overseas, but it wasn't until like the Rudy Gobert game that I was like, oh, this is in Oklahoma City, and it shut down an NBA game, and it's in an arena. And we could all be infected right now. Like, let's go buy our toilet paper now. Like, luckily you had a Hanes contract, so you just have I don't even use toilet paper. I just switch underwear.
I got all those Hanes,
But I think the project is, I don't know. I don't want to say any of this crap. You know what I mean? Like you just say, but I mean, the Kickstarter thing for film or for comic books, how are you liking it? Because I'm flirting with the ideas, and that's in Jason Inman and I, we meet at Norms, and we have our Norms dates, and we talk about creative stuff, and I yell at him for not writing scripts that I think are incredible. Jason has some great ideas.
He does.
And I shake him. I'm like, why isn't that written? Yeah, he's too precious. He's not like me. He's not dumb. He doesn't just tear through stuff like Tasmanian devil. He likes it's a lot of work, man. How you liking that stuff? Like, you've done comics on the Kickstarter? You've done something like that?
I've done 5 campaigns. 5 campaigns. 2 on Indiegogo.
That's a lot, dude.
2 on Indiegogo, 3 on Kickstarter. It's good. It's a good platform, because it's tough getting stuff, especially when you're talking about like movie stuff like that. It's tough it's just tough to get financing, and also it's weird to be in the position of asking somebody who probably doesn't even care about movies to like, please give me permission to make my thing. You know what I mean?
Wait, but if they're following you, if they found you through a link or something,
I'm talking about like in the general, if just trying to get finance outside of crowdfunding.
But most of the people you're hitting up first and who hear about your crowdfunding first, they're SourceFed fans. They're fans of yours.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the benefit of crowdfunding is you don't have to go to these like hedge fund guys.
I got you.
You're like, hey, do you want to make this? No, okay. Do you want to make my anti-capitalist crime movie? No. Okay.
This thing that blatantly says we hate you.
I'm shocked. Oh, I'm stunned. So that's the benefit. It is tricky courting an audience and stuff like that. And I obviously benefit from, as you mentioned, like the SourceFed crowd, the Screen Junkies crowd, the Collider crowd, all that stuff. But it's tough, and it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of ups, and I mean, it's 30 days of ups and downs, and some days you're feeling great and sometimes you're feeling not so great. But I'm lucky that I've been able to finance all my projects so far, and really just to get them out. I'm not making any money on that stuff. In fact, I'm losing money on most of it. But you're getting it out there. You're able to pay your artists a decent rate, and I'm proud of the work that I've been able to put out. And so it's as challenging as it is, it is a good opportunity to get your work out without having to
compromise.
Just get it out on your own terms.
Compromise the idea, but clearly anything that has a financial barrier to it, like, will become. You gotta work on. You gotta budget some things. You can't
especially. You're writing comics. I think that one of the biggest hurdles with comics is your pages. I guess that's probably true of everything, because more page, for those that don't know, you probably mentioned on the show, if you're writing a screenplay, it's roughly a page a minute, and a minute is money. And similar with comics is that's art that you have to spend money on. And so it's like it'd be awesome. Like my most recent run, Hellbent, it's technically, you know, it's 3 comics, 2 chapters per comic, so roughly 6 issues, right? It'd have been great to be able to like plan out, this is a 13 issue run, or this one chapter is going to be 30 pages instead of 20. I can't afford that. I'm not going to be able to raise that money. So it's like you gotta cut. You're like, okay, I've got a 30-page idea, but I can only afford 20 pages for this chapter. And so you're right in that sense. There are compromises, but you're not asking some external force permission. You're asking your audience, are you interested in this thing? And I will say, for people that are interested in getting into that, like I said, I benefited from being able to piggyback off the audiences of the other stuff I did. I think that's one of the biggest hurdles, is building an audience of people that's into that will be into what you're doing. And I think I really lucked out, because I also unintentionally, but I'm kind of like contrarian in the sense of like, the audience that listens to my show is primarily there to listen, you know, because of the superhero random stuff, listen to talk about superhero movies and shows and comics and stuff. And I'm always like, but I want to do a comic about I want to do a supernatural horror thriller. You know what I mean? Like,
there's no overlap. There's not anybody who's like, well,
we finance it. It's just one of those that, like, you know, I'm not I don't always have the instinct to play to, I want to do what I want to do, man. Like I want to go with what interests me. And the superhero space is tricky, because it's, what are you going to do that hasn't been done in the past 80 years? What do you have to say about the genre, the medium, or what can you add to it? And it's not that stuff doesn't exist. It's just trickier. So I go with the stuff that feels unique to me, or you feels like I'm not seeing it out there. Like if there's something, it always comes down to, man, this is something I'd like to see that's not out there. And hopefully people respond. Hopefully once all the SAG stuff is resolved, hopefully it seems like the WGA strike was resolved in a way that was beneficial to the writers. Hopefully it's the same way with the actors, and I get this project out there. But it's going to be a bit, because it's a film project instead of a comic project, so it's just a lot more money. So it's like, hopefully people give care. Are we allowed to cuss on the show? I don't know.
Yeah. The most offensive thing on the show is probably my looks, but so like, don't worry about like cursing. It's all good to go.
Yeah. I always mean to ask before we start recording, because I tend to have a potty mouth.
It's fine. It's fine. And you've been very behaved, if that's the case. You've been very behaved. If somebody was to talk, if somebody was to get to know you through your influences, and we could do it in film, we can do it in TV, we can do it in comic books. Who are some of the storytellers that you gravitated towards as the young kid growing up in Florida? Like that you were like, okay, this was my intro to comics, and this really spoke to me, that maybe in a book, maybe in a movie, that this was like, okay, this started me on a path. This is a voice that spoke to me.
I think like a lot of kids, you know, I'm watching Batman the animated series, I'm watching X-Men the animated series, and that's influential. And when you think back on it, that's a good time. That was a good time to be a kid, because you know it's not to knock the He-Mans and the Transformers, because I watched that stuff too. It was a little.
And that is more my age. Yeah, I think you and I are separated by about 8-10 years. I'm guessing just by your response.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And I'm watching that stuff because it's in syndication. So
sure,
you know what I mean. And obviously, I love Ninja Turtles and all that stuff. But once you get to Batman the animated series, it's like, well, what if we try to advance this, you know, do stuff that's more mature? So I'm
DJ, it's not just toy sales. Like what happened with the Reagan administration coming in and stripping the regulations on advertising towards kids in television programming. Like it became the Wild Wild West, and suddenly everything was a toy, and everything was a commercial for a toy, and every cartoon was a commercial for a toy. And I love Kevin Eastman, who came on the show probably 10 years ago, had a incredible story about he and Peter Laird giving their buddy the 30-day rights to go to LA and see if Ninja Turtles could happen as a cartoon, but nobody wanted to talk to them unless it was a toy. And then so this friend of Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird they walk across town to the toy companies and say, hey, they got this thing, the Ninja Turtles. It's a hot indie comic. It's tearing things up. It's a hit with the comic crowd. And they're like, okay, is it a cartoon? Because we're only interested in the toy if it's a cartoon. This individual lied to the toy company and told them it was a cartoon, and then lied to the cartoon that it was already a toy, so that they would shake hands and be like, all right, cool, sounds good, let's do Ninja Turtles. And obviously the rest is history, but it came because of that dependency that a toy had to be a cartoon and a cartoon had to be a toy. And the thank God the Tim Burton Batman came out and created this. I mean, guys, until The Dark Knight Returns, until in the 60s, 70s, like Batman wasn't popular. And it wasn't until you start having Neil Adams and these guys restructuring Batman as a grittier character. And then suddenly, like, obviously Frank Miller comes in and just nails it, hits it out of the park.
Yeah.
And then that all leads into Death of the Family and that stuff that happened in 88, 89. But you look at the 70s, like, Batman is not really, like, there's a reason X-Men and the Teen Titans was the hit in the early 80s. Like people weren't really talking about Batman until there's a reason that, like, another former Geekscape guest like Michael Island was able to get the Batman rights probably for a song as an unknown, like, he was one of the young kids at DC who was an aspiring writer in their training programs. And, like, there's a reason he ended up with the Batman option. Because nobody respected Batman. And then suddenly Tim Burton and like, really it was Frank Miller, like, and then they changed the language, and obviously Alan Moore with Arkham Asylum and all that stuff. But then you get into the Tim Burton stuff, and I think you're right. I think that suddenly it didn't have to be a toy, and you've got the Batman the animated series. Or, I mean, how many years was young Jonathan going to conventions looking for that Pride of the X-Men VHS? That was the holy grail for young Jonathan, the Pride of the X-Men VHS.
I still got that VHS. I still got it.
In Geekscape, that was the pilot that sat around for years for the X-Men cartoon.
And not for nothing, animation on that still, it's
incredible.
They blew. It was clearly like, we're gonna pull all the animation from this for opening intro, so we got to spend the money on this, and then the rest of the show is not gonna look like that. We've seen G.I. Joe. We know how this works.
Dude, it was the equivalent, Geekscape, if you're a G.I. Joe fan, to the opening intro of the G.I. Joe movie that has them flying around the Statue of Liberty, or it was the equivalent of the Transformers movie. The animated movie. Like, Pride of the X-Men was awesome. It was beautiful.
It did eventually lead to the animated series we got, even though there's a lot of different. If anybody that's played the arcade game, it's the same roster, a lot of the same aesthetic, the same design as the old beat 'em up arcade game. But yeah, so, like, I'm that stuff is there. Like, some of my earliest comics, I still have. Some of them are Scarlet Spider, Ben Reilly Spider-Man. So I have a soft spot in my heart for all that
90s, they did him wrong in that. They did. God, Ben Reilly's been assassinated so badly.
Everyone, they're like, Ben Reilly's back. I'm like, oh, and then I start reading. I'm like, no, I'm good, man. I'm good. I don't know.
Dark web stuff. This dark web stuff, and I've talked about it on the show. This dark web stuff. I don't think it's like Ben Reilly in Beast of the X-Men. I don't know how you fix these. I don't know how you bring these characters back.
I think Ben Reilly, you have an out in that he is a clone. You just say, like, that was a different clone. It was a different one. It was a different one. And then we all move on. And we all pretend like it didn't happen, or just let it be. Like, as much as I love the character, and I think I still, to this day, I think when he was Spider-Man, his Spider-Man costume is my favorite. Just let him be. If none of y'all like him and you want, I mean, you could just let him be. You got Miles now. We could just let him go. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously he's a part of the Spider-Verse stuff, and he's in there, and
it's hilarious. I know a lot of Ben Reilly fans were mad about it. I'm like, did you read the comics then? That's what they were. It's
little edgelord running around,
crying about stuff and over explaining everything. That's just, I thought it was hilarious. But as an adult, when I really started getting serious about what I wanted to do, I think like a lot of people, I feel like I left comics middle school, high school. You want to kiss girls, so you're like, maybe I should stop talking about this comic stuff. But around college, obviously you got MCU starting to become a thing. But the Dark Knight because around the time The Dark Knight hit theaters, Grant Morrison was coming out with Batman R.I.P. And Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo came out with their Joker one shot, and it was reading those. I was like, oh my god, this is art. Like this is legit. Like this is real creative people can do really incredible stuff in this medium, and that got me back in the door. So like now with a lot of, again, like we love talking about the geek stuff, but for me, major influences, I like crime movies. Michael Mann's Thief's one of my favorite movies of all time. Good Times, fantastic. So that stuff influences me a lot. It's tough. I'm sure it's similar with you, where it's like all the things. I'm just, you're doing all the things, you're reading all the things. So it's like, oh, what are the main?
There's a lot of spinning plates. Like you,
yeah,
like I was telling Matt Kelly earlier today, I think about an hour before we got on the air. Matt runs the Geekscape network and does the very popular Horror Movie Night podcast, as well as like a few other podcasts on the network, like our I love our Weird Al show, Weird Algorithms, where every episode they pick another Weird Al song and they go deep dive on it.
How many Weird Al songs are there?
They're the fans. I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
I just look at the downloads, man.
Yeah.
But Matt Milligan from Wheatus is the co-host on that, and they just had, Wheatus just had their renaissance from the whole teenage dirtbag movement on TikTok, and that's their song. And so I love it when creative people who have been guests and they get shows on the network, like Megaran. He just, guys, Megaran, you guys know him as remember back in the day when I would interview him at E3 as like the chiptunes rapper? Dude just charted heavily on Billboard in multiple categories. So like, congrats to Megaran, Geekscape's Megaran on that one from our Matt Mania podcast. Like, oh my God, that dude's popping off. His music's in like the end credits or something in Mortal Kombat 1, which you've been playing. Like,
yeah,
I'm so effing proud of Megaran and some of the geeks.
Awesome.
Guys, I only built this thing so people could use me as they could put their foot on my face to reach that next run.
Yeah.
Do not take me with you.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm talking about my movies, video games, and comics, and writing my little scripts.
Yeah.
But I am so proud of these Geekscapists, man. Like, holy crap. It's awesome. Amazing. So congrats to you guys. But yes, I was telling Matt, like, yeah, dude, the plate spinning of all this stuff is getting away from me. Can you help me with a few of the things on the back end for advertising rates and things like that we need to figure out? Because as this thing grows, we're kind of paying out the podcasters a little bit more and more and more, as we should.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it. I kind of like being able to pay my podcasters advertising, because as somebody who was over at Revision 3 was cool, like Westwood One or some of these giant radio conglomerates, like my 2 years at Westwood One, that Geekscape was over there.
I
didn't like the way that the percentages were cut. I didn't like that stuff, and I think, again, the freaking Shankar's voice is in my head, but I remember taking the show over to Westwood One because they would let me keep it, but it was stability. It was like, oh, I got a beautiful studio, I've got all this radio stuff, I've got like all these people working for it. No, like the Geekscape's not their main job.
Yeah,
they're just not going to care like you do.
Yeah,
so after kind of like looking at it and be like, oh, I think we're better off on our own. It's just a lot more work, man. And it's the plate spin. Like I told Matt, like you're telling me now, like the plate spin is hard, but that's the gig.
Yeah,
that's the gig. And would you do anything else? No, I'm too underqualified.
Yeah. Well, the people, I'm sure similar with you, people ask advice like, what is your advice for anybody in LA or anybody that wants to come out to LA or pursue film or art or whatever? And I remember a piece of advice that I got early on out here when I asked a similar question, which was, don't do it. If you can do anything else, do that instead. And if I ever figure out what that would be, what I would do instead, that's when I'll be gone. That's when
It's too late for me, man. I think I got roughly 8-10 years on you, man. Like, I think it's too late for me. I think stick a fork in me. I think I'm done.
But like, yeah, for me, like that's the advice.
There's still hope in your eyes.
If there's something else that brings you joy that you can do, go do that. Do that. Don't do this. This is miserable.
Yeah.
Don't do this. But if this is it, if this is the only, and I give that advice, and I feel good about giving that advice, because if you're like me, the answer will be like, well, there isn't another. This is it. You know what I mean? And then you'll stick to it, and you'll deal with all the hurdles that come with it. But if because I think like it's easy to get enamored with the glitz of it all and not realize like all the for lack of a better word, misery that comes with it.
But we've seen people succeed. That is the other thing. I see people popping off.
That's how they trick you.
Oh my God. No, you see people succeed, and you see your friends succeed. Like last weekend or 2 weekends ago, I went to see they've never been on the podcast. Maybe I'll ask James to be on the podcast. He did the show Shrinking for Amazon, for Apple. Was it Apple? I'm sorry, James. Maybe it was Max. And then he did Daisy Jones and the Six. But James was somebody who, like, I went to Columbia with. Awesome guy, so sweet. Has his birthday. Heidi and I go downtown to his birthday. He's having it with another friend of mine, Ed McGinty, who taught college with me.
Yeah.
Like, that was our hustle jobs for a long time, teaching college. And Ed was like, man, I'm out of this college thing. Like, this is so hard. And we go over to James's party with Ed. The two guys are doing their party together. And Heidi's like, that guy over there looks like Jason Segel. And I'm like, sweetie, that's Jason Segel. He and James are good friends. Like, that is Heather Graham. Yes, these are like, you go to this party. And then the next night we go to, not that the parties aren't any different. I mean, they're different in Hollywood status, but I love the people just the same. The next night, our friend Amanda, who is over at LA Comic Con and helps out so much with everything, with access and everything we do over there. She has her party at a karaoke party over at Ron Swallow's house. Ron's been on the show, and Bernie Bregman's over there, and those are our geek friends and this and that. Like, but I say that to say, like, you hang with the geek friends, but then you see people like James, or you see people like Megaran, or you see these different people who are your peers in the hustle, and they pop off. And some of them do not just leave you there; they hang out, or they entreat people. It's like we're all connected, and ultimately you got to gun it for this stuff, Geekscape. Because one day there's going to be about 6 feet of dirt on you, and you're going to be wishing you had. Yeah. And like, as Mr. Shankar's voice says again, stability is an illusion. Yeah. We've got a Facebook user on watching saying, hey, great advice. That's why I left LA, where I was born, and moved to Carolina, LOL. But I'm pretty sure Facebook user who, listen, with StreamYard, you have to like register with StreamYard or something like that for your name and logo to like show up on the comments. Geekscapists on YouTube, you can see it, but on Facebook, if you're watching and commenting on Facebook, you got to like do some registration thing with StreamYard for them to see your ID. That being said, I'm pretty sure you're in Carolina still writing and making stuff and working on film or comedy or whatever your creative aspiration was, because it's really hard to put this fire out. Yeah. If it's really the fire, if it's really what you're about, it's really hard to put it out. Yeah. And again, like, you're reading the Moon Knight stuff right now. That's
Jed McKay.
Jed McKay. Like, I thought it was our friend. Do you know David Pripos? No. David Pripos is currently doing this Moon Knight City of the Dead.
Yeah. Check that out too.
And like, have you read it?
Yeah, I think it's on issue 2, I want to say.
Let me see if I can pull a cover of it up. Geekscape that's if you hear the siren going past my window, that's a sign that Matt Kelly just added 4 more podcasts to the network. Still waiting on that Pop-Tarts one that he threatens to add to the network, Pod-Tarts. Here we go. That's Moon Knight City of the Dead. Like, like David is an example of somebody who's been on Geekscape. And next thing you know, he's starting to write a lot for Marvel, and he's doing like a Hulk one shot, or he's doing a Thor one shot, and and then he gets a book, and then we're off to the races. And these are people, Geekscapists, who are in your trajectory. These are people who are in your like circle. That stuff is discouraging or inspiring to you, DJ?
With people, any success is always encouraging. You know what I mean? You want people to be successful. Anybody that's getting their work payoff is great. It's just it's just a, you know, when when I go back to the advice thing, it's just helping people understand that, like, it's not, they're not going to roll out the red carpet for you. You know what I mean? It's and you got to be ready for that amount of, yeah, it's got to be worth
Of
it.
anxiety,
Yeah.
of waking up in the middle of the night being like, oh, the first of the month is coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And so it's just, you got to be ready for that. It's got to be bigger than just the idea or thinking that you kind of want to do this thing. But no, success, I mean, you want people, that hard work to pay off. You know what I mean?
what's your support network? If you like, what's your support network? Like, we all
Yeah.
have our support networks. Jason Inman being one of them for me. We were talking about going to, like, we go to Norms about once or a month, and we do paying. Like, he paid this past weekend.
Yep.
And you know what, Jason? Even though my meal was comped because they had a freaking piece of paper written note in my salad and comped the meal, you know what? I got next. Even though you didn't actually have to pay for my meal this time, Jason, because they put a foreign object in my food.
Yeah.
I got next. But I'm telling you this,
Yeah.
Jason, next is probably not going to be at Norms after they put
Yeah.
stuff in my, after I found foreign objects in my food. It's probably not going to be at Norms. But you're welcome to join us, DJ. That being said, like, going out with your friends and having a meal where you say, hey, like, it's insane, right? Like, we're like, what are you working on? What am I working on? Like, what do you think? What do you think? Like, giving each other advice. Like, that's a support network. What else do you find, like, alleviating to some of this stress?
Nothing.
I think of doom and gloom at all times.
Yeah. It's all struggle. It's all hardship. No, man. Like, it's good. Like, I got my wife and everything. So, you know, things are, you know, but I think, like a lot of people, it's been a hard few years. You know what I mean? It's been you know, COVID, strikes, all that stuff. It's challenging. It's challenging for everyone, not just in this field. We talk about this field, but it's like, there's a reason auto workers are on strike. It's been, you know, hottest summer on record, all that stuff. But no, I'm very blessed that I've got some fantastic loved ones in my life, and like you're mentioning, like, you need that too. You need that support. You need people to especially people that aren't in the creative field, that might not know the logistics behind it. You know, supportive, understanding, patient. You know, all that sort of thing.
Do you put it in your writing?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you feel the same way, but for me, a lot of the stuff I work on is processing, because if I'm going to put the time and energy and effort that is required into writing something, it has to be meaningful to me. You know, I think everybody's gotten stuck doing a project that seemed like a great idea, but it was just, that's it. It was a cool idea. And so now you're like saddled with something that's not meaningful to you.
And if you're not getting paid for it, or it comes back in like you said, it doesn't financially reward you, or it doesn't, like, at least you have this thing that you love.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the counterpoint. If somebody's handing you a paycheck to write something, you know, you take that check. But if you're like with the stuff with Kickstarter or whatever, you're just trying to put something out there, or you're writing something for you, or you're writing something to pitch to people, you're putting that energy in there. So yeah, it typically revolves, or not necessarily specifically about, but it typically indirectly or directly deals with my thoughts and feelings about certain issues, or the station I'm in my life, or
is it political? Is some of your stuff political, or like when you talk about it?
I think kind of everything now is political in some level. I think it's kind of an unavoidable, you know, it's in the comic space, people get mad of like, I can't believe they made Watchmen political. And it's like, have you read it? Like, have you read? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's all like because we're you know, there's a lot of bleed between, you know, especially once you have a reality TV star as president, there's a lot of bleed between what is political and what is entertainment, and how that impacts. Like, you've got people that are quote unquote political that are basing their entire paradigm off of being mad at Barbie. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of, like,
that is insane.
Yeah, there's whether you like it or not, whether you want it to be that way or not, there's a lot of bleed between the two. So yes, in that sense, yeah. Again, just anything that I'm feeling greatly in life that shows up in my work, and I usually use that as a way to process those feelings, articulate those feelings. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about art is that it is a way to communicate to somebody else that you may never meet through time and space. Like you can read something from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago and connect with what somebody was feeling or going through then. Like I remember a class in college I was supposed to go write a paper, go to an art museum and write a paper on something I said at the art museum. I was like, but then I went and I was looking at this kind of abstractionist piece that was using a lot of reds and oranges and made me think of like lava and anger and that sort of thing. And so there's not a specific character, or it's not like a portrait or a landscape or any of that stuff.
It was a sentiment and a tone.
Feeling, yeah. And so like suddenly, whatever this person's intent was, I'm connecting with the feeling that person was trying to convey on the canvas. I'm connecting to that through, however, having never met this person.
How much did you have to pay for the painting when you punched it?
When I punched it,
your anger got the better of you when you ran. Oh, okay,
I ran. I wasn't able to afford to cover that. Are you kidding me?
This anger. It gets me, and then you fucking punch it.
Florida, there's no laws against punching. In Florida.
No, they're like, oh my god, this guy has a great idea. Let's get rid of the art, and then let's burn the books next.
The cop wrote me a check, actually.
He's like, nice one. You're getting rid of the art. We gotta go. You and me. But hey, man, you want to go step on someone's neck?
But I think that's the power of stories, and I think that's why you get to push back with. And people focus a lot on AI, which I think is obviously a problem. But if you've watched a Netflix show or you've seen a Marvel movie, and I love a lot of Marvel movies, but you have seen the studio system try and make art an algorithm. Can we punch in a set of things and get money? They want to make it an ATM. I compare it to the Ford assembly line. Like, yeah.
I think art has tried to automate it, replicate the Ford assembly line since the beginning of it.
Yeah, and it's just and not that it's not a business, and not that people don't need to make money out of it, not any of those things.
You're not a widget.
It's just a different thing. That's not what people connect to, and you can't artificially create that. And I also don't think you can really. And this is the part that frustrates them. You can't predict it. Like, you don't know, like, are people going to connect to this? Or, because I want to say, like, something like, at the time, wasn't Fight Club a huge bomb, the movie? And now, you know what I mean? Every boy in college has that poster on their wall at one point. It's you're obligated. You have to. So
you're not really a man if you don't have a Fight Club poster.
If you haven't misunderstood Fight Club at some point in adolescence, have you even?
But DJ, when you have Chat GPT, as they did this morning or over the weekend, when the makers of Chat GPT have this new iteration coming out, that is, like Siri and these other, voice activated or voice, dependent AIs, when the people who made Chat GPT come out and they say that it can now see, and whereas Siri has to hear something for like a couple hours to get a voice down, when it can do it in a matter of minutes, and it's way closer to a human voice than Siri is, and it's learned it over the course of a few minutes. I think there's like Chat GPT 10 or something. Like, that doesn't start to worry you that the line is becoming more blurred than, and the resonance might actually end up there somewhere. Are we talking about like The Creator right now, like the Gareth Edwards movie that's coming out this weekend? Are we talking about that at this point? Are we close?
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think my concerns with AI are and there's not anything inherently evil about it because it's a tool, and there's nothing inherently evil with tools. It's just how people use them, and and we unfortunately live in a system and a society that values tools over people, because you have to pay people, but you can buy a tool. And that is where my concerns lie, because I don't think, considering we are at a stage now where we're not even entirely experts in the field, aren't even entirely sure how our brains work, like what constitutes consciousness. Like, it's not an algorithm on a board yet. I doubt we're at a point where we could even create it accidentally.
Sure.
I think maybe I think yeah, I don't know that that's in the cards yet, so I don't know. And of course, the businesses aren't going to want that, because the second it gets a consciousness, it's going to be like, pay me.
Right.
So there's actually a vested interest in corporations not letting it get to that because they don't want another mouth to feed. That's not the point.
Right.
But
or it just straight up takes what's yours.
But listen, like the thing is, when I was working as an editor, I'm using Final Cut or Premiere or whatever, and that is an evolution of technology that makes that job significantly more accessible than it would have been. If anybody's watched the Coen Brothers movie Hail Caesar, there's a bit with Frances McDormand where she's an old school reel-to-reel editor.
I've cut on a Steam. I used to cut on a Steam back.
And so it's not as easy.
It's hard.
It's
awful.
Yeah, it's not. And so like
I cut on a Steam back almost as like a film school exercise of like, hey guys, like, and I love shooting on film. I've always loved shooting on film. I think it's fun. I think as a director, it's an incredible tool to say, hey dude, you need to economize this because you're paying for every foot of this. And you need to be really careful with your ideas. You need to be really precious with your selections.
To let's just shoot this on a green screen and we'll slap it
I was talking to an artist today. We're going to shoot their music video next weekend.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't fucking care. Let's shoot everything. And I literally said that. I said, how many hours you got?
Yeah.
Let's run the camera. Let's not turn it off. Let's shoot effing everything. And let's just go nuts. And like, you're just not doing that with film, man. And you're definitely not doing that when you're like splicing crap together on a Steam bag, man. That stuff stunk.
Yeah. And so it's one of those, and those are tools, and you Photoshop. I use Photoshop a lot. And those are tools that really impacted people.
And they have a ton of AI now in Photoshop.
Yeah,
have you seen all these new tools?
When it works the way they say it's going to, maybe it'll be super cool, but it has not impacted. At least my stuff has not been impacted by the.
No, but Geekscape is like you can remove subjects from your the Photoshop stuff that like I just updated my Photoshop, and the stuff that they rolled out on this thing is crazy. And I'll be honest, it got my imagination thinking, which I think is what you're talking about. Like my imagination was still intact. It was still thinking about how to use these tools.
Yeah.
Not, I'm going to hit a button and it's going to do it for me.
Yeah. And I think that's the trick. If you get these, because that's the other thing. And I know people have mentioned this too, but it's like, why is it the art jobs we're trying to get rid of? Why are we trying to get rid of the jobs people want to do and are excited to do? It'd be kind of like, don't worry, everybody. We've replaced everybody in the NBA with a robot. Aren't you excited? It's like, what? No, why? That's not the point of the thing. Like, why? Yeah. Why not data entry? Did you guys not have that conversation? Why not? Why is it art that we're doing this with? And it's because, and we don't need to go down this path, because capitalism doesn't know what to do with art. It doesn't understand. The system just doesn't understand. It's not a system that values people, so therefore it's a system that doesn't value art. And so therefore as a country, by and large, we don't value art. And that's a bummer. And I'm hoping we figure it out. I'm hoping they churn out enough trash where people are like, wait a second, this isn't what I like. It's like, yeah.
It doesn't look right. And like we started to see some of this stuff roll out in some of our comic book products. So some of our comic book shows, Image put out a comic book that had a lot of AI in it, and they got flamed. One of our major like comic book TV shows in the last year had an AI intro, and it got ripped, and it wasn't a very good intro too. No offense, guys. Like I will watch everything you guys make because I'm a Marvel fan through and through, but there were other ideas on the table maybe that would have been awesome. DJ, I love talking to you, man. I'm so glad Jason mentioned this, and I've loved interrupting you this entire hour. I love speaking over you. This is just fantastic. You're such a well-knowledge person and set up my idiotic thoughts and interruptions so well. I love this. Geekscape he's got this podcast. We talked about it. Yeah. Only Stupid Answers.
Yep. Every Monday
on Spotify, dude. You guys got to subscribe to this. It's like this conversation without my interruptions. I mean, we didn't even get to Mortal Kombat 1, which you've been playing, and
it's good.
Like, what do you love about it? Just if you want to talk about a little Mortal Kombat, we can talk a little bit of Mortal Kombat.
I'm a Mortal Kombat fan. They do kind of like a reboot, revamp. I will say, light spoilers. It is a reboot in the sense of something like the 2009 Star Trek, the J.J. Abrams Star Trek.
Okay,
where it's like it's a reboot, sort of. There is other stuff exists.
When they called it Mortal Kombat 1, I was like, no, I was there for Mortal Kombat 1. I remember it.
And nobody's ever said this, but I feel like there's an inherent joke in that it's Mortal Kombat 1, 2, Mortal Kombat 12, like it's the second Mortal Kombat 1. No, they not like nobody's been like that's the joke, but I feel like it's Mortal Kombat 12, it's Mortal Kombat 1, 2. But whatever. Anyway, it's fun. It's just a cool reimagining of the franchise. And I think they've streamlined it in a way that it makes it super fun. I'm just about probably tonight I'm going to beat the story mode, and then I'm going to do some tower stuff. My buddy that I used to play Mortal Kombat with all the time now lives in Detroit, so I'm hoping maybe I can get him online and we can play stuff. But I love video games, and I like to every night I usually play like an hour to a couple hours of something, and I've been digging Mortal Kombat.
That's great. Have you the Van Damme thing is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the fact that we had Mark DeSalle on the show. He directed Geekscape. He directed Kickboxer.
Yeah.
He wrote Bloodsport, or do I have that vice versa? But Mark was on the show, and first off, like MMA and that whole thing was based on Bloodsport. So they like Dana White and those people like told him like, hey dude, this is all because of Bloodsport. Yeah. But also I heard Mortal Kombat was based on like inspired by Bloodsport as well, is what they told him. And now Van Damme dressed in his Bloodsport like outfit is in Mortal Kombat. Is he a character you have to unlock, or is this a character you can go from the
DLC,
beginning?
He's DLC, and he's a skin for Johnny Cage. Johnny Cage was based from what I understand, the lore is the story is that, like you said, Mortal Kombat was originally going to be a Bloodsport. I don't know there was a Bloodsport game, but it was inspired by Bloodsport, and it was going to be Jean-Claude Van Damme. It was going to be Jean-Claude Van Damme the game. And then they weren't able to do that. And so, and a lot, by the way, everybody that has their own little Star Wars idea or whatever, a lot of the stuff you love was like they wanted to do a thing and they weren't allowed to, so they made a new thing like Star Wars. And so instead they made Mortal Kombat, and now it is what it is. But yeah, so I think it's a DLC skin that is not out yet, but you can put it on Johnny Cage. But it is, so all the moves are Johnny Cage, but it is Jean-Claude Van Damme's face and his voice and stuff like that when you put on that skin, it's a cool. The one that got me though is they asked the creator was like, was there anybody that you want to do that you couldn't? You're like, oh, we tried to get John Wick and they wouldn't let us. I'm like, oh my God, that was on the table? I could have had a Mortal Kombat game with John Wick.
That's awesome,
man. So hopefully maybe Mortal Kombat 2, 3, or whatever the next reboot is. Maybe we'll get John Wick. That would be amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm a Van Damme fan, as many Geekscapes know. Geekscapists, you all know that. And speaking of Johnny Cage, our good friend Casper Van Dien played him in the Machinima series, and I talked to Casper yesterday, day before. Casper was at our wedding, and a dear friend, and holy shit, he was a really good Johnny Cage for Machinima and Kevin Tancheron and that group over there. That was awesome.
Good. I still think that might be the first Mortal Kombat movie is pretty good. It's pretty
good. You did. I mean, I'm not a Mortal Kombat fan, and I know. I mean, I'm not a fight game fan in a lot of ways, but I watched them because Kevin is a great dude, and he came on Geekscape to promote it, and that's how I met all those dudes.
Yeah.
But you like those Machinima series were awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty great. It was better than the new movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, the plot armor movie and this and that, and of course, Michael Jai White was just on Geekscape 2 episodes ago. Geekscape, so he was in that short that Kevin did.
Yeah,
I've been doing this shit too long. I think we're learning, DJ. I got to get a dedicated co-host to just cut all these guests out, man, because this crap becomes inbred.
Yeah,
this stuff becomes so incestuous where it's like, I've been doing this too long, man. I peel back. I'm like, everybody's been on this show. DJ, you're the last person.
Oh, I'm the last one.
The last one who has never been on the show.
Sorry, everybody. I'm the last one. I want to thank you for having me.
Going out with a bang, dude.
Yeah.
Ralph Oppel is on the comments. He said, "Hello, Geekscape," and hey, Ralph, congrats on the Kickstarter. Speaking of Kickstarters and crowdfunding, congrats on the Getting Lost documentary. You guys blew past 100 grand, and that documentary is gonna be awesome. So congrats to you and Taylor for that one, and loved having you guys on the show. And congrats on the fundraising for that doc. We can't wait.
Yeah.
All right, DJ. Geekscape is again the show that you're going to subscribe to. Only Stupid Answers on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. This is Geekscape, and DJ, come back anytime, man. Love talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
Love talking over you, man. Geekscape is, you have your mission. Go out and share Geekscape with your friends. Leave us all the 5 stars or whatever, or 4. We'll take 4 in a nice comment. And just tell your friends about us. We have more shows on the Geekscape network than just this one. We have a ton more. If you search for Geekscape, it's got a little bit of the stamp of approval on it. And we do a lot of more fun stuff. Like we're at conventions like LA Comic Con. We have a booth at San Diego every year. We want you to be a part of it because we don't do any of this without your feedback. So thank you guys so much for keeping us going. This has been Geekscape. We'll be back next week with a brand new guest and more conversation. Love you guys. Peace.